If you were an NBA fan back in the late 2000s, early 2010s, you know Shaquille O'Neal was the biggest critic of one Dwight Howard. And Dwight at that point unquestionably was the best big in the game. But despite that, Shaq had so much disdain for Dwight Howard, he would say guys like Brook Lopez and Andrew Bynum were actually better. Looking back on those takes 10 years later, they're absolutely ridiculous, as Dwight back in his prime was a massive pick and roll threat on and off the court. So with that context in mind, I think Shaq maybe, just maybe, found Dwight Howard 2.0. As recently, he said Victor Wembanyama is basically Bol Bol 2.0 with more opportunity, as both Bol and Wemby are 7'4" guys, have a nice handle, can kind of shoot, and are freak athletes.
I want to go at Reggie a little bit. He talks about he's never seen a guy like Wembanyama. Yes, you have. His name is Bol Bol.
You think Bol
Bol?
Hold on.
Let me finish my point.
They both black or something?
No, let me finish my point.
Yeah.
Bol Bol is the first big guy with 7'4" with handles that can shoot the three, passing ability. Y'all act like y'all ain't never
Well,
seen
no,
a
I
guy
didn't say
like
no,
that.
no. I didn't say not guy.
So off the bat, to my knowledge, the first 7'4" guy who had guard-like skills, had a handle, was actually Ralph Sampson. As you can watch clips of him back in the day, bringing the ball up the court, running the fast break, and dishing the rock. Yeah, he didn't have the 3-ball back then, but in the 80s, nobody did. And for Bol Bol, of course, look, he's a unique talent, a physical specimen, and highlight-wise, unbelievable. But if you think the NBA has some conspiracy against Bol Bol not to showcase him like Wemby, you're out of your mind. And simply put Wembanyama, he's a better overall player, better prospect, with a much higher ceiling. And it's no secret, being the first pick in the draft, you get more opportunity, more leeway, and more exposure to the general public. And the only way you can equate Bol Bol to Wemby, if you only look at highlights and 10-second clips. If you look at Bol Bol off his highlights alone, you would say this guy is a top 10 player in the NBA. And any random person on the street who doesn't watch basketball, they'd think Bol Bol was the best player in the world. And I guess you could call it highlight culture, Instagram culture. These 10-second snippets, 10-second clips, they try to paint a picture of a player being much better than they are. As looking at Victor, of course his stats are impressive, but his biggest strength thus far is defense. As already, he's averaging 2.3 blocks per game, that is top 5 in the NBA. And impressive to me and many, his defensive field goal percentage is 36.4%, the best on San Antonio. And if you actually watch the entire full 48-minute games, not just highlights, his defense is even more impressive. As players, when they get in the paint, are literally scared to even attempt a shot. And if they do attempt a shot, he may not block it, but he'll alter it in some way where it's much more difficult. Things like that don't show up in highlights or even the stat sheet. And once again, improved by someone like Victor is miles better than Bol Bol. And looking at the offensive side of the ball, I don't think Victor yet truly has had a really good game. He's had moments here and there, he's popped off in a few fourth quarters, and been great for stretches. Well, let me stop myself right there, because after this video was made, Victor actually went off versus the Suns, having 38 points, 10 boards, and finally putting it all together. And looking at his overall stats now, they're even more ridiculous. Averaging 20.6 points, 8.0 boards, 1.4 steals, 2.2 blocks on 50% shooting. And keep in mind Victor's overall numbers, averaging 20 points per game. He's doing that with only really one complete game where he put it all together. And I do find it pretty fascinating Victor already has beaten one of his idols, that being Kevin Durant, not once, but twice. Back to the video. Compared to all rookies, he ranks first in scoring, 4th in rebounds, and 2nd in blocks. And again, looking at Victor's crazy burst of brilliance, when it comes to fourth quarters, this guy just turns up in an instant. In his debut versus Dallas, he had 9 points in the fourth quarter. When entering that quarter, he only had 6 for the game. Versus Houston in the fourth quarter, had 9 points, 3 blocks, then in overtime, added 4 more. And most recently versus Phoenix, again had 9 points in the fourth quarter, including a clutch put-back dunk that eventually led to a W. Victor's crazy moments in the fourth quarters are just little glimpses of what he'll be in the future and in his prime. As looking at fourth quarter scoring compared to all rookies, he ranks first at 7.3 points, shooting 80% from the field, nearly 70% from 3, with a plus-minus of 5.3 that ranks second among rookies. Look, I don't want to overreact too much to a 5-game sample size, but Victor so far hasn't played great and is still dominating in the box score. And looking back at him versus Bol Bol, there's this weird debate online, I think it was TikTok, where again, they compared highlights of Bol Bol versus Wemby, and the overall conclusion was Bol Bol wasn't getting pushed because he's a darker skinned player. Now look, stuff like this, it's absolute nonsense. If Bol Bol was truly the second coming, you wouldn't have NBA teams suppressing him and trying to hide him and not expose him to the public. If Bol Bol was Wemby 2.0, I'll take him on my team right now, this second. There's too much at stake in the NBA to suppress a player for his skin color. And the fact comments like that get nearly 7,000 likes is a little bit disheartening. And the general laziness of these comparisons, looking at Bol Bol and Wemby, both 7'4" guys, have a little bit of a handle, can block shots, and based off that alone, saying these guys are equals in the same tier, that's just lazy basketball and lazy analysis. And it reminds me back in the day, whenever you had a white player kind of athletic, he was Gordon Hayward 2.0. And every guy from Africa who could jump, block shots, they were the second coming of Serge Ibaka. And my favorite of all time was Adam Morrison just because he's white, being Larry Bird 2.0. Surface level comparisons like that, they really do drive me crazy. And for the last time, Bol Bol wasn't the first Wemby, the actual star, who was suppressed by the league. That's simply not true. So, as always, thank you guys for watching, hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you next time.